Now let's dive into the main session with Dr. Atul, where we are going to dissect an ERA CV, and you will see from the eyes of a program director and other reviewers like Dr. Weissman on what a program looks for in the CV.
Okay, great. So, but congrats to everybody. And this is, I think it's a good testament, guys. Like, we created these programs to help all of you. Like me and Dr. Wiseman, we really truly believe that it's an insane system that all of you guys are doctors. We have a shortage of doctors in the United States, and we still can't fill them, right? And you know, so all of you guys deserve a spot, and hopefully we just have to get you through the system somehow. So even if you don't match year 1, year 2, don't give up. There's always, you know, there's always next year, but just keep improving. So this CV is a real resident CV. I got his permission to show it. Obviously, I tried to remove as much information about him as possible, but I wanted to kind of share with you what we see when you guys apply, so you kind of have an idea. So let me give you a little bit of background about this this student. So he took all of his examinations. Let me just, I have his scores here. Okay, so he had no attempts on his exams. He took step 1 in 2017, and he got a 216. So he passed with a low score. In 220, he took step 2, and he got a 246, good score. And then in 2022, he got a 226. Okay, passed all of them on first attempt. So as you could see, not phenomenal scores, not low scores. He's halfway in between. Okay. So when you guys see it, when we first take a look, it'll give us obviously the name of the person. If you have a preferred name, you can add that here. So for some people that have very long, complicated names that might be difficult for interviews and things like that, you might want to put a preferred name that might be easier just to kind of like conversate if you wish. It has their IDs here, where they went to medical school. It has his date of birth. This is optional. You don't have to put that in, but most people do. But if you feel like it might disadvantage you, you don't have to include it, or if you feel uncomfortable. It tells us if they're seeking visa. So for example, he needed J1 sponsorship, which our program has. But for example, like if you're a US citizen, it'll just say US citizen, non-visa seeking, right? It tells us how he identifies. So he identified as white Caucasian male or Middle Eastern male. Their phone numbers are here. Guys, please, this is a big one, right? Your email and your phone numbers, you really want to make sure you have numbers that are accessible, and if you're international, that you can be reached. There are many times where we can't, for example, like we'll send an email invite and for an interview, and the person doesn't reply because let's say they put the wrong email. So we'll try to call them, and that number, you know, is international, so we can't, they don't pick up, and then you lose an interview that way, right? So you want to make sure that whatever number is here is a number that you're absolutely reachable, and your email is correct. Double check that information. It tells us if you've had any military service in the past. These are obviously all where the red flags would be. It tells us if you've ever had a misdemeanor conviction in the United States, a felony conviction in the United States. This will be flagged if you put yes. It tells us if you're ACLS or PALS certified, and when those will expire. Ideally, you want to have these as most residency programs will have you redo them as part of your orientation anyway, but it's good to have that just to show that you know, you're certified. So this is the other portion that we would see. Okay, so where he went to school and for how long. So he started in 2013, finished in 2019. He graduated in 2019. It tells us if there was any interruptions in his training. If he clicks yes, he would explain that, why he had some interruption. So some people that maybe took like 5 years, 7 years to graduate from medical school, they may have to explain, okay, like I took off some time, or I had a family reason. You might have to explain that here. He did not take time off, so he doesn't have to explain it. Medical school honors. So for example, he was in a dean's list. He won these awards that you would place here. Memberships and honors. So these Alpha Omega Alpha is an honor society that's present in the United States. Most international schools do not have it. So this is not something that's going to apply to you guys. This is mostly for American graduates. Same thing for the Gold Humanism Honor Society. I don't believe most non-US schools have them. But if you have certain memberships, like he's a part of the American Academy of Physicians, American Academy of Internal Medicine. These are things that you can sign up for yourself, like to become a member of these. It's a little bit prestigious, and it shows that you're constantly reading, updating your knowledge, because to be a member of these, you have to continuously submit CMEs. So that means you're probably somebody that's actively studying. He's an active member of the Jordanian Medical Association. So anything you think that would apply, any sort of society you're in, you would put it here. Okay. Now, education, for him, there's nothing here. But if you're somebody that was educated in the United States, it would tell me, for example, where you went to undergraduate school, where you went to medical school, and the dates that you attended and the degrees you've earned, and in what majors. Okay, so let's go to the other side. Okay, oops, sorry. Okay, so here we go to his work experience. Actually, we missed one. So, okay, so this is, he's an active resident with us. So you could see here he would put if you've ever trained or completed residency in any program in the past, or if you've completed residency in your country, you would put that here. So work experience would include, so for example, he's a PGY1 resident, right, under my supervision. Average hours worked, and then he would put a description of what the residency looks like. So where he rotated, what he actually did, etc. And under work experience, guys, would also be your externship. So this is, if you're an international graduate, this portion is extremely important. We want to see, where did you work, right? What kind of experience did you have? What were your responsibilities? So for him, for example, he worked in Qatar, right? So I will tell you, working overseas is not as important as working in the US, because you guys are applying for US positions. So you want to have clinical experience here. If you've done experience outside, I would include it. So if you're in India, for example, and you're volunteering at a clinic there, or you're involved in tuberculosis clinic or whatever, right? I would put that there, right? But by itself, it's usually not enough. You want to also have some US background, showing them that you're familiar with the system here. So he worked in the Ministry of Public Health in Doha, again, that's overseas. Sorry, let's see here. Okay, so here, for example, he has some clinical experience in the United States. So this is at St. Joseph's. This is a rotation that we offer. So he worked with Dr. Bagal, a gastroenterologist. Here, this is Hamad Medical Corporation. As you can see, this is in Doha. He was a resident there. He completed 1 year of residency before he did our rotation here. And then obviously he put a schedule of what he did, and he described it. Let's keep going. So he had Heroes of the Hearts, Manama, Bahrain. This is in Bahrain, where he was an instructor. Okay, this is his, and then he described what he did there. He was teaching medical students. Research experience. So for example, I'm going to show you how this is maybe a little bit of a red flag for me when I was evaluating his rotation. So when I interviewed him, this is something that I asked about, right? So notice he did a research rotation, right? So he did like some research months from almost, half a year under the supervision of this physician. And he described what he did, writing proposals, performing literature reviews, etc. But then when I went to his, what you'll see at the bottom is he has no publications, right? So to me, guys, if you're going to do a research year, right, you really want to get something out of it. So when you do a rotation with Dr. Wiseman in research, right, you're going to most likely publish, because we publish a lot, right? So you really want that research year, that research experience, to give you some fruition. To just do a research year and not have any sort of clinical literature published, or at least submitted to a conference or presented at a conference, would be kind of like, a little bit of a red flag for me, because that means it was not a productive research year, right? Here again, he did another research rotation in Doha, in Cornell, in their campus for 2 months. But again, same thing. He just collected data, but nothing was submitted, right? Okay, let's take a look here.
Yeah, I mean, that's if I could just interject that one point. I think that's very important also. When I'm reviewing CVs, it's almost like let's say you did 6 months of clinical experience in the US, and then they ask you about your letters of recommendation, and you have no letters of recommendation from a US doctor. So those 6 months you did clinical experience, what did you do wrong that did not lead to the fruitful letter of recommendation? That similar type of thing. Like, you want to have some sort of publication at the end of the research, or else, or at least you submitted it to a journal and put the journal there, which means you really didn't take it to the end and the finish line, which could show a little bit of, laziness or lack of intuition. So this is something important.
So here, as you could see, at the end, there's a section where it says publications. And in here, in this section, it would say, for example, okay, what is, if he did publish something, it would show something like the name of the paper, where it was published, the authors in title of beginning to end, and it would have maybe a slight description of maybe the paper at the bottom, right? It can also say published or submitted. So for example, for you guys that are applying, some more, the more top tier journals take time to review submissions, right? So if you submit a paper, you may not hear from them for 2 months, 2.5 months, right, before it gets published. So that's okay. That's all right. So as long as it's submitted, you can put it on your CV. Okay. However, if it's just something that you're working on, but you haven't even submitted it yet, it can't go in this section. Does that make sense? And if it's published, obviously that's even better and better. So you really don't want to have this section empty, especially if you've done research years, right? So hopefully that will help. So I believe, Poam, so that's it. That's kind of what it looks like on our end when we look at people's CVs. We also obviously get a script of their USMLEs. We get a copy of their letters of recommendations, and we get a copy of their personal statement. And that's it. That's everything we see when you guys apply.